Hey everyone, it's been a while, but I'm finally back with another video. This time I'm going to show you guys 10 tips on how I like to draw fur. Obviously there's no real way to draw fur because everyone has their own methods and techniques, but these are mine and I just find that maybe if I share them to you they can help some of you guys out too. Also, I was a little sick while recording the voiceover for this video, so I apologize in advance for my groggy sounding voice. So tip number 1 is to draw lots of layers. I find layering one of the most important techniques when it comes to colored pencils, especially when I'm drawing fur, because in order to create realistic looking fur, it needs to have a lot of dimension and depth. And in order to do that, I need to do lots of layers with my colored pencils. So the way that I generally do my layers is I start off with a nice light base layer of just a nice pale color. So for this drawing I just used cream, and then I start to build on that. So I start to kind of shade in my shadows where they're gonna be, and then once I get that done, then I start to add the details. So I just start lightly adding little strands of hair, and that eventually becomes a coat of fur. Tip number 2 is to use a variety of colors. So you might be looking at this drawing and think that it's mainly I only using yellows and browns, but that's not true. I'm actually using greens, grays, even some blues at some point. But the point is that you want to get a nice variety of colors in order to give your piece more dimension. And also, even if you're not willing to go outside of your basic colors, so for this drawing, for example, you don't want to use blue and green or everything, and that's fine, but make sure you're not only using one shade of yellow and one shade of brown, or else your drawing's going to end up looking really flat and not as realistic. Tip number 3 is to do nice soft strokes with your colored pencils. Now, this is different for everyone, but I find that if I do nice soft strokes with my colored pencils, it helps me build up layers, and in the end result ends up giving the piece a lot more dimension. So I don't like to start off with really strong strokes, or else it gives the fur kind of a stringy quality that I don't really want in my piece. I want my fur to look nice and soft and sort of fluffy. So in order to do that, it's important that I do soft, loose strokes with my pencils. Tip number 4 is to look at the direction that the fur is going on your reference photo. When you draw fur, you don't want it to look all messy and scattered around. You'd want it to look more uniform and soft. So the way you can do this is to always put your pencil strokes in the direction that the fur is going. So like for example, on the lion chin that I'm drawing right now, you can see that the fur, it's all going in the same direction, and that gives it more of a fluffy, realistic look. Number 5, your drawing doesn't have to be perfect. No one's gonna notice if a few hairs are off, or even if a whole chunk of fur is off. You just need to make sure you have the general idea and capture the general direction, colors, and length of the fur. So don't stress out about making sure every single piece of fur is in the right place and pointing the exact right direction. Just make sure you kind of have the general idea and it'll look realistic. Tip number 6 is to increase the contrast on your reference photo. This is definitely something that I like to do in order to better see where all the shadows and highlights are. And in the end, I find that a realistic drawing with more contrast ends up looking more realistic because the blacks are super dark and the whites are super light, which gives it more of a detailed look. And if you need help finding out where you can edit your photo, Instagram, you can edit the contrast on there. And also, if you're using an Apple device, I know that on the Photos app, you can edit your photos. So definitely look into it if you want. I find that it helps me a lot, so maybe it'll help you too. Tip number 7 is to add lots of details on your drawing. In order to create realistic looking fur, you definitely have to add a lot of details because fur is full of details. So the way that I do this is I normally lightly add details on each layer. So just adding little black hairs that I see or anything. And then on my final layer, it'll be all about adding details. So I'll take out my white pen and I'll just start to add like little highlights that I see, and I'll take a black pencil as well and add little shadows. Also, it's important to keep in mind drawing whiskers and any other little hairs that you see because it'll definitely add to the realism of the piece. Tip number 8, sharpen your pencils. This kind of ties into the previous tip about adding lots of details, but fur is very fine, and so you'll want to have pencils that are able to draw that fine detail. So always keep a sharpener by your side, and every now and then just sharpen your pencils if you notice they become blunt. Also, if you find that you're wasting a lot of pencil by always sharpening them, you can use the blunt end to draw the underlayers like I'm doing right now. As you can see, there's not a lot of details, so it's fine if the pencils aren't very sharp. But gradually, I'll start to add details, and that's when the pencils are going to have to be sharp. Tip number 9, look at the length of the fur on the reference photo. This is especially important on the facial area because usually when you're drawing fur on the face, it's not going to be very long. So why would you use long pencil strokes to draw that area? Even though it's going to take a lot of time, you're going to want to do more shorter, repetitive strokes in those areas because in the end, it'll end up looking a lot more realistic and you can better see the details and where all the highlights and shadows are, and it'll look like real fur. And my final tip, be patient. I know this is sort of always used, but it's definitely one of the most important tips for drawing fur. fur takes a long time, and that's just how it is. So you'll not want to cheat that by drawing just super thick, dark strokes. You'll really want to take your time and gradually build up that layer in order to give the piece some more dimension in the end. It'll definitely pay off once you see that you've achieved a nice, realistic looking animal. So I have a bit of time left to talk about the drawing, and I definitely want to say that drawing this lion, the process was super fun. I really got to practice drawing fur and refine the techniques when it comes to drawing fur. I was able to practice doing shadows and highlights, and I also really liked the background and how that came out because it really puts the focus on the lion. So thank you all so much for watching. It means a lot. And thank you for 100 subscribers. That's so awesome. And so yeah, if you're interested in buying prints of this drawing, I have a link in my description where you can check out my website, and I'll have prints available. And 50% of the profits from the prints will go towards the Humane Society and helping the animals. So once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks with a colored pencil review. Bye!